Morning, chick flips, and Pocky lovers of all kinds. As you can see, Kaiba's scarfing down and right on top of my playmat. I'm set up a little bit backwards from the normal setup because we gotta use our laptop today. Oh, really? Fudge off, whatever you're doing, system update. I don't need you right now. I'm busy. And then, yeah. Really, system update? I said fudge off. I am busy. Oh, silly Discord 2 opening up when it's not supposed to. Okay, hopefully all the nonsense is done. I am here today to do a review of. Oh, not a review, sorry. See, now I'm being thrown off. We are here for the Commander Core Creator Challenge. I'm just gonna put you guys over here while I. Actually, I did need Discord. Fudge. Discord, come back. I remember why I wanted you open. Okay, really? Kaspersky? Not now. My goodness, everything is conspiring against me. I'm trying to do this as quickly as I can. My dad just went out for his walk, so I'm hoping against hope. By the way, check out our Discord page if you haven't been over here yet. Pugs and card players. We have a puggy channel for all our Kaiba stuff, and for anybody else who likes puppies and stuff. I'm gonna add a generic puppy lover spot too. And then we have our card players spot. So this is my deck, but the deck I want to show you is, of course, the other participant in the Commander Core Creator Challenge this month was once again Snoop. And when I publish it this time, I'm going to make sure that I grab all the links and add them to the videos this time, because last time I forgot. But while we're waiting for that to open, we can come over here and go to my deck. So this is my Commander Core Creator Challenge contribution for the month. It is my Tatyova, the Steward of the Tides deck. I built what Architect has deemed to be a bracket 2 deck, and I'm pretty happy with my deck actually. Um, my deck kind of seems. Wow, my computer's being really trippy over here for some reason. I think it's because Microsoft Edge is trying to open over top of Moxfield or over top of OBS. Ah, so frustrating. Anyways, um, my deck focuses not so much on the land creature thing, although I do make some land creatures for sure. But my big thing is definitely more of a landfall deck. So I kind of took the idea that Snoop had run with last month, and I kind of focused that on how I built this deck. So there's a lot of landfall shenanigans in here, a lot of ramp stuff, and just good old fashioned smack 'em in the face like Green loves to do. Just gonna go through all the cards. When I come across something that has a combo potential, I'll let you guys know about that. But otherwise, I just kind of want to get through this as quickly as we can because, like I say, my dad is out right now. I have a Joriel, voice of Zalfir. Um, at the beginning of combat, I can turn a land into a bird, and that bird has flying. And whenever a land creature deals combat damage to a player, I get to draw a card. So Joriel and Tatyova kind of go really well together as like the commander and backup commander of this deck if it were a actual precon. Continuing on, I also have Kaiba's Bum slowly approaching the deck. Oh my goodness, Kaiba! He's mad at me because we were supposed to go out for a W, but ALK, but then my dad left, so I thought I would try to get this in real fast. Um, Nikanzel, whenever a creature explores land, I get to put it on the field, so that's just another landfall trigger. And whenever I get a non-land, this thing gets a +1/+1 counter. There is not as much explore stuff as I would have liked necessarily in this deck, mainly because I've already built a Merfolk that, of course, focused on exploring and stuff based off of the Lost Caverns of Ixalan deck set, sorry, so mostly. So, yeah. I do have a second Tatyova in here, which is the obvious one to include. Gets whenever land enters, you gain a life and draw a card. Fantastic for this deck. Um, I included Bonnie Paul, largely because Whenever he attacks, I draw a card, and then I can put a land from my hand or graveyard onto the battlefield. So more landfall shenanigans. Plus, he gives me a really cool Ox that has massive power and toughness based on lands. So good. We got ourselves Zimone. I did intend to include more than one version of her in here, but ultimately I cut the other version. Pay one, tap, put a land onto the battlefield, so landfall stuff. And whenever I pay four and tap, she can draw me a card, but I get two if I have eight lands. So pretty good. I've put in an experiment garage, mainly because there's going to be a lot of plus one stuff, plus one counter stuff going on with the exploring and other things that are going on in this deck. And by tapping him, I can put a plus one counter on a target creature. Plus, he gets all the abilities, activated abilities, sorry, of any card that has a plus one counter on it. So not just my side of the field, I can take abilities from my opponents as well with that card, which is pretty cool. Um, we got Marcus Mutant Mayor for adding some more plus one counters to things. Anything that attacks and does combat damage to a player, if it has no plus one counter, it gets a plus one counter and then becomes a trigger for my experiment. So those two are like a really cool combo together if they both get on the field. And if it has a plus one counter on it, I get to draw a card. So I'm just getting more and more cards into my hand. Um, if I had an extra um, reliquary tower or something that would have given me no maximum hand size, I would have added it to this deck. But most of that stuff's already been used in my other decks. So unfortunately, I couldn't add anything like that to this deck. But if I had it, it definitely would have been in here. Kodama of the West Tree is just going to give everything trample on my board, and plus it has reach, which is awesome. And yeah, if a creature deals combat damage to a player while it's modified, I'm putting another land on the battlefield. So this all around is just doing everything I want to do in this deck. Very solid piece to try and keep a hold of. From last month, I moved the Defiler of Vigor over from the previous commander deck that I had just built with Molimo. And I also moved over the Warden of the Grove. More plus one counters going on to everything. Warden of the Grove especially is good because whatever enters the battlefield, regardless of what color it is going to get plus one counters on it for sure, as long as he's been on the field for more than one turn. The Defiler Vigor, of course, only applies to green stuff. I think it goes on every creature I control. It's just I can only play put plus one counters if I get a green permanent spell. So there is a decent amount of green permanent spells in here, don't get me wrong, but yeah, that is the challenge with this deck. I apologize for the microphone as well if it's not working super well. I'm not using my regular mic to record because I forgot to grab it while I was setting up and Kaiba was over here. Uh, I got him as calm as I could. Gnarlig Colony is going to also give everything trample that has a plus one counter on it, including itself, so that is fantastic. Now we're starting to get into some of the random fun stuff. We've got some exploring stuff. We also have some landfall stuff all kind of mixed together because I didn't sort this deck before I started recording. When this enters, it explores. So, for the record, anyone who doesn't know, exploring means I'm going to look at the top card of my deck when when this thing enters. If that card is a land, I get to add it to my hand. If not, I can choose to either keep it on top of my deck or I can put it into the graveyard. Either way, if it's not a land, the creature that explored gets a plus one counter. So, pretty solid. Next, I don't know why I flipped it over. We have Scoot Swarm. Any good landfall deck wants a Scoop Swarm, of course. Um, Especially because it's going to just copy itself over and over again once we get up to, I believe it's six lands, right? Scoot Swarm? Yeah. And we're going to get to six lands pretty quickly in this deck. Another Merfolk Jade Light Ranger enters, it explores, then explores again, so that's two land cards potentially to my hand. Keeping in mind that if I can get um, the Kanzel out onto the field before I start doing all this exploring stuff, then I'm going to be just putting those lands directly onto the battlefield instead of into my hand. Another beautiful exploring card. This one's actually going to get moved right to my Merfolk deck as soon as I'm done filming this, probably. because my Merfolk deck is getting a cool upgrade with this card for sure. At the beginning of combat on your turn, this thing explores, and then I can have it become a copy of any creature I control until the end of turn. As long as I don't pick a legendary creature, I am going to get some pretty cool effects, probably. We have Tendril of the Micro Tyrant. This is in here just to make land creatures. Honestly, I'm going to probably pull this from this deck too and put it into my fungus deck when I am done with this. Um, I have every intention, of course, keeping the deck lists up on Architect. That way I can always revisit, buy the extra cards I need, and rebuild the deck if I want to actually play with it at a future date. Kaiba is having the time of his life with his monkey over here. Monkey! Ooh, it's the monkey of my life. Good boy. Seeker of Sunlight explores by paying 2 and a green, so that one I can trigger over and over again to get lots of landfall stuff, especially if I can combine it again with Nikanzel. Pathfinding Axejaw, another one that when it enters, it explores. It's the only one that isn't a merfolk that explores in this deck. Civic Gardener is in here mainly because I can untap one of my lands that is a creature, or I can just untap a regular land, or I can untap a regular creature. Lots of options when I attack with him. And assuming I can get a lot of +1/+1 counters onto him and give him trample, I'm going to swing with him. Grappling Kraken is another landfall one that's an amazing card. Um, 5/6 for 4 and 2 blue. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, I get to tap a creature an opponent controls and put a stun counter on it. So if I can do enough landfall stuff in one turn, I could possibly tap out an entire opponent's board and then just swing out on them so that they can't block. Topiary Stomper. This one I actually added after I published the list yesterday. Um, I realized that I had forgotten that I had pulled this, and I like this one better than the Ondu Giant. So if you're in my Discord and you saw the list yesterday, I did post an update, but that's why. Enters battlefield, search your library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield, tap, shuffle, and then this thing can attack or block. But I mean, it has vigilance, which is really good. So the 7 lands isn't going to be an issue, I don't think, with this deck. And the fact that it has vigilance, and then I can also end up giving it trample and a whole bunch of +1/+1 counters is fantastic. I decided to keep Cliff Top Lookout instead of the Giant because it has reach. That is the main reason. The Giant actually had much better stats at 2/4 than the Frog does, but the Frog will allow me to block flying, which is going to be a challenge in this deck for sure. Spore Mound for the landfall. Every time a land enters, I get a Saproling. That's definitely going to happen a bunch. Land War Scout. I can tap it to put an extra land on the battlefield, so more landfall triggers. Scythe Cat. Whenever a land enters, it gets a +1/+1 counter. It already has trample built in, so it's going to get massive really fast if I get it out early. Merfolk Branchwalker, another one that explores. I don't like the fact that it has one butt. It's only in here because of the fact that it explores, and I don't have extra options for explore right now, because most of them are already in my Merfolk deck, as I said. Same with this one. I do love the fact that this one has vigilance, but the fact that it only has one butt is bad. So you're hoping to get +1/+1 counters on it fairly quickly. This one is fantastic. 4 and 2 green, sorry, for a 4/4. But whenever a land enters, it gets +4/+4 and trample until end of turn. This thing is going to get massive. Every turn, they're definitely going to get at least one land on. Potentially, you'd get a minimum of 2 lands out per turn, so this could become a 12/12 every turn, and it could get even bigger. Plus, you have a chance to put all the +1/+1 counters and stuff on it. Like, that one's insane. Deeper Wayfinder is also a really cool card. It has a decent stat line compared to the other 2 Merfolk we just recently looked at, but the best part about this one is when it deals combat damage to a player, you surveil one. So look at the top card, put it in your library, put it back on top, or put it in your graveyard, and then you get to add a land from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So trigger all the landfall stuff again. Undergrowth Leopard is in here largely because I could sacrifice it and destroy an artifact or enchantment, but I do love the fact that it also comes in comes with built-in vigilance. This is the bad boy of the deck for sure. I want to get this into my graveyard early because at the beginning of my upkeep, if it's in my graveyard, I can pay 2 and a green. If I do, I can return a creature from my graveyard to my hand, which means all the stuff that gives me landfall, all the stuff that I can combo with in this deck is always readily accessible to me as long as somebody isn't exiling my graveyard. Next up, I have World Breaker, another one to deal with enchantments and artifacts. It also deals with lands, but I don't expect to use it for that reason. It is expensive to put into play for sure, don't get me wrong, but again, this is a landfall deck, so it shouldn't be difficult to pull off. Has reach, has really good stats, but the best part is you can pay 2 in a colorless, sacrifice a land, and put it back into your hand. So I can trigger its ability to exile artifacts and enchantments and lands, again, not going to happen very often, over and over and over again. So it's a constant threat in my graveyard. This is a awesome card too. I can't believe this actually exists. 4 and a green for a 3/4. Whenever at the beginning of my end step every turn, I make green insects for each +1/+1 counter I put on creatures this turn. So with regards to the Warden of the Grove and the Defiler of Vigor, if either of those are out, this thing is going to be making a massive army of insects for me each turn. And last creature of the deck is Crash of the Rhino Beetles. Just trying to get it to focus for you guys. Largely because of the fact that it gets +10/+10 if you have 10 or more lands. It already has trample built in. But I mean, the big thing is, again, we're going to be putting +1/+1 counters on this thing, so it's just going to get huge. The potential of this thing to get to like killing with one swing is insane. Like an entire board with one swing is a real potential. We got going into our instance now, we got Growth Spiral, because why not? We've got Joint Exploration, because of course. Actually, these might be instants and sorceries. These are all ramp cards right now. Harrow, sacrifice a land, but I got 2 as a result. This one's actually a lot of fun because you get to scry 2, draw a card, and you get to put a land as long as you kick it, which you're going to have enough mana probably to kick it relatively easily. Roamer's Routine, another one that's going to get you a land onto the battlefield. These are all putting the lands or at least almost all of them, are putting a land directly onto the battlefield rather than in my hand, which is important. It also has Harmonize built in, which means I can replay it from the graveyard for cheap. Explore, 1 and a green, play an additional land, draw a card. Kodama's Reach, 1 land to hand, 1 land to the battlefield. Nissa's Renewal, 3 lands to the battlefield, and 7 life. It costs a little bit to play this one, but it's definitely worth it. And Cultivate. Because it's a classic, why not? 1 to hand, 1 to the battlefield. Auroral Procession, sorry. This one's mainly in here to return one of my enchantments that's actually in this deck later into my hand if it gets sent away, because that enchantment's really important. Tamiyo's Safekeeping to protect my commander. Same with Snakeskin Veil, largely in there to protect my commander, but also to protect, say, Deviler of Vigor or something like that if it gets targeted. We got ourselves a Fog of War. I do have better prevent all combat damage cards in green for sure, don't get me wrong, but this one gives you a lot of life gain. And with the amount of creatures that this deck is going to make, I think that I'm going to really benefit from that life gain. So that's why I chose it. Urza's Rebuff, 1 and 2 blue. I can counter a spell or I can tap 2 creatures. Either way, really useful. We also included a negate, a cancel, and a counterspell. Come on, counterspell, focus, focus. There we go. I love the artwork on the counterspell, sorry. For shits and giggles, because I knew it would be a fun include, I put in a frantic search so that I can untap 3 of my land creature cards and have them as blockers at instant speed. I also included for fun and giggles a Rite of Replication. Now this is insane. I discussed this online to double check and make sure that it works the way I think it does. So if I play Rite of Replication on, a creature made by the Steward of the Tides, say. Or if I did it to the bird token that this thing makes. I don't think it's better with the bird token. It would be better with this though. But if I do it with this, let's say, I'm going to make, if I pay the kicker, 5 new land creatures that are going to come into play. They're going to count as lands, so I will get landfall triggers, which means I'm going to get 5 more lands that aren't land creatures to become land creatures off of this as well. So essentially, I'm going to get 10 creatures by paying 9 mana. Now, that's a lot of mana to pay, but you get 10 creatures? That's pretty insane. They all have flying because of Tatyova's ability as well. And because of Joriel's ability, when they deal combat damage to a player, I get to draw cards. So, yeah, definitely going to have access to most of my deck really easily. I can send lands to the graveyard constantly because I'm going to have ways to get them back. Spoiler. I think I already showed you one, though. I'm pretty sure there was a creature in here that lets me get lands from the graveyard. Just want to go back and double check. Oh, yeah, it was the Deep Root Wayfinder. We already discussed that. Yes. Okay, so next. Swiftfoot Boots to protect whatever I need to protect. Adventuring Gear and Skyclay Pickaxe do the same thing. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, the equipped creature is going to get +2/+2 until end of turn. So whatever I'm equipping with these, they're going to get really big off of all the landfall stuff that's going on. We got ourselves a Heaped Harvest because more landfall triggers. Plus, I get life out of it too. Why not? We've got ourselves an Explorer Scope to get more landfall stuff. Burnished Heart for more landfall stuff. I added a Soul Ring into this deck, not because I think it needs the mana, but specifically because of the World Breaker, so that I can always have an ability to bring it back. And then finally, my favorite artifact in this deck is actually the Lodestone Needle, because while it does very little on this side of the card, essentially when it enters, it taps one target creature or artifact and puts 2 stun counters on it. Not a huge deal. It does it at flash speed though, which is nice. But what you get when you craft with it is insane. You get a really cool artifact called Guidestone Compass, which pay 1, tap, and you can pick any creature you control and it explores. Now, the thing that I love about that is if I combine that with Nikanzel, whenever a creature I control explores a land, I put the land onto the from my hand onto the battlefield. Whenever a creature I control explores a non-land, I put a +1/+1 counter. If I choose to use this to make Nikanzel explore, Nikanzel either gets 2 +1/+1 counters, or I get a land each time I do it to my hand, which then goes right to the battlefield. Either way, that compass is insane as a combo with Nikanzel. But it also just goes really well with any creature that I want to let explore, right? So, I mean, that one is a fantastic include. Next, we have Harmonious Emergence. Gives me another land creature. So, another thing that I could target with my. The important thing is to try and figure out what things I wanted to target with the Rite of Replication. So, I tried to pick different ways to make land creatures. So, I've got the fungus that makes massive land creature fungi. And then I also have this, which if I target the land that I've enchanted with this, I'm going to get copies of that land as a creature again. I believe. I didn't double check on that one to be fair. So, and then the last 3 cards are just some insanely fun enchantments to put into this deck. The first one, and the one that I really love in this deck for sure, is Glacier Wood Siege. I am obviously going to pick Sultai every time I play this card, which is going to allow me to play all my lands from my graveyard. So anything that lets me play a land each turn, I can play the lands directly from my graveyard, and therefore any land that I sacrifice is going to come back to me on a regular basis. I can keep doing landfall triggers, etc., etc. This one is fun for what it does on the backside more so than anything else. I do get a land, I get 3 life, but on the other side, And then we have Gossip's Talent, which is in here largely because when I get to level 3 and I attack with all my exploring creatures, I can keep exploring with them over and over again. Yes, they'll lose all their +1/+1 counters, but they will allow me to actually keep doing all the landfall stuff, which is pretty cool. So you're going to notice there was a weird skip in the video here. I apologize in advance. I'm just going to put the deck back out. Uh, oh, I forgot I wanted to sort those back into. I'm going to pause this because you're going to have one more little bit of. Okay, let's see if we can get through this now. So I was talking about Gossip's Talent when I stopped talking. Um, my dad had come home. He's outside working right now on the window thing, though, so I think I've got enough time to finish this deck now and hopefully put together the video for you guys before the end of the afternoon. So the reason why I put Gossip's Talent in here, yes, it flickers my creatures that explore, which is going to trigger the explore triggers again, which is awesome. But the other thing it does that's insanely cool is it actually can flicker my land creatures. So all of my lands that are birds or elementals or whatever, um, when they attack, I can flicker them out, bring them back as regular lands. So then I can trigger all my land effects all over again. And in addition to that, I have access to a bunch of lands for counter spells and stuff if needed. So it's a very versatile enchantment in this deck. It's probably like the best enchantment in this deck, other than maybe, and I emphasize the word maybe, the Glacier Siege, but I really don't think that Glacier Siege is as valuable to this deck as Gossip's Talent is. The ability to just keep flickering all my mana so that I have a mana base for all my opponent's turns to use my instants and sorceries is just chef's kiss. Way too valuable. Let's go through the lands super quick, and then I want to get over to Snoop's deck. So my lands base is pretty straightforward. Lots of different dual lands, starting with Lumbering Falls, which is definitely an auto include in this deck because I can make myself a three green and blue elemental creature until end of turn every time I pay the mana. We also have Lush Oasis, if it focuses. There we go. So I get to deal damage when this comes into play. I have Smith Gilgate. I have a Temple of Mystery for the Scrying. A Thornwood Falls for myself to gain life. A Quandric Campus, another one that can let me scry if I pay the extra cost, but probably won't be doing that. Hinterland Harbor. We're going to get into the destruction lands that are fun. We've got Field of Ruin, taps for colorless, so it helps me with World Breaker, but also I can sacrifice it to destroy a non-basic land and opponent controls. Everybody gets a basic, so I get landfall triggers, and I can bring this back from the graveyard, which is the game plan as a threat, potentially. Evolving Wilds, more landfall stuff. Put this into play, get a land. So that's 2 lands in 1 turn. Same with Terramorphic Expanse. And then we just included an Ash Barrens for the same reason of the Soul Ring, mainly just to help us with Breaker. And then the rest of the deck is just 12 islands and 12 forests. So pretty straightforward land fall deck. Overall, there are 35 lands in the deck. I was hoping to put closer to 40, but I just couldn't figure out what else to cut from this. Tatyova should be on top. So that's my Tatyova Steward the Tides deck. And now I'm going to disappear briefly, and we're going to look at my screen. And my screen is going to show us the Snoop deck. So just going to close that and that and bring up my screen for you guys, and then we'll flip over to here. All right, so Tatyova Commander Challenge deck by Snoop has a lot of actually. We had some really cool overlaying this um month. Last month there was a little bit of overlaying. This month there's a lot more, I thought, which was interesting. We do have a Steward of Tides overlay, of course, because we're both playing the same commander since it's Commander Core Challenge. But in addition to that, some of the things that he put in, I definitely would have put in if I had extra copies, like Nissa Who Shakes the World, which is an amazing planeswalker for this deck. Let's go check that. You're getting +1/+1 counters on lands. All your lands tap for extra green. Um, or all your force, sorry, tap for extra green. Um, Fantastic card for this deck for sure. He definitely focused a lot more on the land stuff that was being done. Vital Force, same thing, making land creatures. Invasion of Zendikar is a crazy cool battle in this deck. Um, Not really a big deal when it comes into play, other than the searching for two basic lands is definitely a good thing for landfall decks, don't get me wrong. But what you get in return when this thing flips over is insane. Vigilance Haste, as long as it is on the battlefield, it's a land and taps for one of any color, but also it's a 4/4, so fantastic card. Um, then we're going to go through some creatures here that he's got. All of his stuff is more focused again than mine because Snoop loves to do his on the Mox field here, so he has access to all the cards, and he definitely does a great job of building a deck. I'm not going to say he doesn't. We got Aftermath Analyst, which is going to do some fun stuff. Getting land cards back basically from your graveyard if you sacrifice it, so it's a massive landfall all at once. Drawing cards for this one. This one, you can play lands from your graveyard. I needed some more stuff like that in my deck. I just don't have enough of that. Ashaya, of course, is an insanely good and classic include in a landfall deck. But the best part about Ashaya is all your creatures are forest lands in addition to their other types, so everything is now a land, which means everything's going to gain flying from Tatyova when you combine it with Ashaya, which is a crazy cool combination. Avenger of Zendikar, of course, gives all your plants, 0/1 plants, +1/+1 counters, and any other type of plant that you have in play. I don't know how many plants he actually has in this deck. It seems like a more elemental focus, personally, but we'll keep an eye on that as we go. Azusa, I had an Azusa enchantment version. His is actually really cool. Play 2 lands per turn. I have a Blossoming Tortoise in one of my other decks. If I was smart, I would put it into this deck, though, for sure, if I were to keep this deck. Dryad of the Elysian Grove, just extra lands. Embodiment of Insight. Land creatures have Vigilance. That's insanely good for this deck. And it has land. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may have target land become a 3/3 elemental until end of turn. Like, fantastic engine for that deck, for his deck. Play an additional land. Play lands from your graveyard. Whenever a land you control enters, mill a card. Ice Till Explorer is insanely great. There's my first grade of the video, I think. I'm not sure whether I had a grade before or not. There are a lot of creatures in this deck. Overlap here, we both have a Joriel, Voice of Zalfir, which just makes perfect sense in this deck. Uh, Joity Moog Agent enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 Forest Dryad land creature token for each time you've cast your commander. Um, Land creatures you control get +X/+X until end of turn. Like, Snoop's deck is really, really focused on the land creature aspect, whereas mine, I just didn't have enough creatures to or enough cards to focus on that aspect in my card pool. So as you saw, my deck is a lot more focused on the landfall triggers aspect. Not that Snoop's doesn't focus on that. Snoop's definitely focuses on that too, big time. His just definitely takes it to another level that mine didn't. When this thing deals combat damage to a player, you may choose any number of target lands you control and put an awakening counter on each of them. They all become 8/8 elemental creatures as long as they have awakening counters. Damn. I definitely need a Liege of the Tangle if I decide to make this a deck I want to permanently play. Loam Speaker lets you add mana of any color, and lands become elementals with haste. Tribe Elder, of course, just sacrifice it, put a land onto the battlefield. Spring Bloom Druid, sacrifice a land. You can put two basic lands onto the battlefield tapped. I did have one of those in my deck originally. I ended up cutting it. Sylvan Advocate, Vigilance, as long as you control six or more lands. Uh, your land creatures get +2/+2, and so does that. We both have a Tatyova Benefic Druid in here for the obvious landfall, life gain, draw card stuff. Thunderfoot Bailoff is a great include as a commander lieutenant. There's my second great. I'm starting to slip. Timber Protector. I think I was going to put that into my deck, but no, I ended up not putting it in. I put in something that was different. Something that gives my Sapperlings +1/+1, I think. Or maybe that's in my no, that's in my Goblins deck that I'm building currently. Titiana enters Force. You can play Force from your graveyard. Force you control enters. You get a 5/3 elemental creature token. Mm, Protector of Argoth enters. Create a land. Return target land from your graveyard to the battlefield. Whenever land is put into your graveyard, get a 5/3 elemental creature. So those two are kind of neat. Whenever an elemental over here dies, you're going to mill three cards. Whenever you mill a land, you're going to end up making another elemental. So essentially, those two feed off each other in a really cool loop if he gets both of them on the field at the same time. Both of them, of course, are Titianas, so that makes a perfect sense. Oops, I did not mean to enlarge that. Waker of the Wilds, another land creature creator. Eudora, if I had another Eudora, that would have definitely went into my deck as well. I didn't have an extra copy of Eudora, and as you guys know, when I build these decks for my challenge, I do not actually want to break up any of my decks that I actually currently play with. That is my rule. So a lot of cards that Snoop has in here, I definitely would have used if I were willing to break up some of my other decks, but I just don't do that. Animus Awakening, Awaken the Woods. That one's fantastic. Holy. Yep, that's great too. Search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, and shuffle. That land becomes a fractal creature. Harvest Season is an incredibly good card for this deck. I think I have one copy of Harvest Season. I can't remember what deck I've put it in. Kodama's Reach, Nature's Lore, Nissa's Pilgrimage. This is a fantastic deck all around here, Snoop. I'm really loving this. Everything is landfall triggers, land creation. It's so synergistic, but it actually doesn't feel like it's going to be more than a bracket 3 deck. There is no bracket info available per se. The owner has not specified a bracket for search purposes. This deck is treated as a bracket 2. It doesn't have any game changers in it, so I mean, as far as I can tell, this is actually a bracket 2 deck, which is a much better version of the deck than mine. My deck version is worth like 85 or $100 maybe. Snoop's here is clearly worth 432. Beast Within, Endless Restoration, Growth Spiral. We both have Growth Spiral, Harrow. Uh, do we have anything else in common? We both had a Kadama's Reach. Definitely some great, fantastic cards in here, Snoop. Snoop's deck has a lot less artifacts than mine did, but mine, of course, is because I wanted to get the Explore thing going. If I were to actually drop the explore mechanic from this deck and focus more on the um, actual landfall land creature aspect of the deck, probably have a deck very similar to Snoop's, to be perfectly honest. Crucible of Worlds is fantastic. What does this thing do? Sacrifice a land, you gain 2 life. Conduit of Worlds, you can play lands from your graveyard. Tap, choose target non-land permanent card in your graveyard. If you haven't cast a spell this turn, you can cast that spell. If you do, you can't cast additional spells. Ooh, that's pretty cool. I think I have a Conduit of Worlds, but I'm not sure. And the enchantments. Beastmaster Ascension. That's just fantastic. Case of the Locked House. I only had one copy of that. It was already in one of my decks, so I couldn't put it in here. Druid class. Never. When this class becomes level 3, target land you control becomes a creature with haste. Creature's power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. Damn. That class is pretty cool. I need to get a Druid's class at some point. Earth Surge. Nisa Zendikon. Wilderness Reclamation. And of course, his land base is going to be a lot hotter than mine too, probably. He's got Breeding Pool, Cascading Cataracts. I'm not really sure why you want that one necessarily. Command Tower, of course, is a good one. Darksteel Citadel. Oh, I get it. You're putting in indestructible lands so that they can actually attack when you create the. Ooh, that's actually not a bad idea. I should have thought to include a couple of indestructible lands. I'm not sure if I have any more artifact lands or not. I put a lot of them into my one artifact deck already. I like the fact that Snoop, different than me, Snoop actually looked at the mana base and reduced the amount of islands that he has and increased just the amount of dual lands to cover for the difference. Whereas I definitely stuck to split on my mana base right down the middle. Layer of Hydra enters battlefield tapped, add green, pay X in green until end of turn it becomes XX green Hydra creature. Neat. Mutavault becomes a 2/2 creature with all. Ooh, I didn't even know that existed. I have seen Mystic Spring. I think I have a copy of that in one of my decks. Rejuvenating Springs, Reliquary Tower, of course. If I had an extra copy, I would have included a Reliquary Tower in my deck because my deck is doing an insane amount of card draw, which means I'm going to be doing a lot of discard probably each turn that I don't want to do. Ooh, there's an artifact land called Tanglepool Bridge. I need to figure out what series that one came from because that's a good one to include in this deck. And of course, Cradle of Growth. Why not? So, as you can see, Snoop's deck is definitely a solid deck. It is definitely exactly what it needs to do, and it's definitely going to pop off probably every turn. I'm just going to take that off, put this back on. Oop, I said put this back on. And bring that back up. Okay. So, we've seen Snoop's deck, we've seen my deck. Um, Compare and contrast, I think, like I say, Snoop's is just a much better version of my deck, to be perfectly honest. Um, I built what I could with what cards I had available. Uh, that's the way that I design these decks for myself. Um, if I ever happen to actually get a commander out of this luck draw at the beginning of each month that I'm looking forward to building, you guys are going to see one hell of a crazy deck, probably. But in the meantime and between time, any deck that I do build for this challenge is going to be just probably um, a jankier version of whatever Snoop puts out. But no problem with that because Snoop's decks are awesome to look at. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this look at my Commander Core Creator Challenge deck and Snoop's Commander Core Creator Challenge deck. Kaiba has disappeared in the meantime and between time. I think he's distracted by what's going on outside. Um, as always, I just want to say thank you to Snoop for participating. I hope that we'll get some more participants next month. Each month, I am going to buy a pack of cards that I will give away to the winner of the Commander Core Creator Challenge. This month's winner is, of course, Snoop. So, Snoop, congratulations. You have a Core 2021 pack of cards coming your way. If you hit me up in the Discord server, give me your address. I will get that sent to you sometime next week. And I'm going to cap off this Saturday's video here because I still have to finish the Sunday deck, and I'm not sure if I'm going to have a chance to actually record Super Deck Sunday this week. So if you guys don't see that video, I apologize in advance, but otherwise, we will do what we can. It is a holiday weekend. I don't know what's going on with respect to people being here and not here, and what my plans are. But I am hoping to make a video of Kaiba over this weekend at some point to maybe go to the park or do something cool with him. Anyways, I'm rambling. Much love to you all from Kaiba outside or wherever he is, and I to you take care. Love you guys. Bye.